If we're giving something to someone that's useful but cannot be digested, it's useless. You can give someone the most wonderful meal they've ever eaten, but unless you give them the utensils they need to consume it, it just looks pretty.
We've already talked about what to do in many stages of the customer journey, but one thing we've yet to discuss is the customer relationship. Now, as customer education professionals, you may think, hey, that's not my job. But contrary to your belief, relationships are essential. And who better to talk about customer relationships and discuss this with me than my friend, Amy Elenius, Manager of Customer Education. Hi, Amy. Say hello to the audience.
Hello, everyone. Dave, what a glowing introduction.
Well, you're deserving of such, and we're going to have a good talk here today. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. When you're ready to go, let's rock and roll.
Perfect. Fire away. I'm ready.
What we'll start with is, what 3 common mistakes do you see people make when it comes to customer relationships? And before we get into that, I wanted to just go back a little bit and talk about you. I know from our discussions you've been both customer education manager, but also you have roots in customer success, right? Can you say that before you answer your questions a little bit?
Absolutely. So I had a strong background as a CSM in SaaS startups, and then moved into customer education in the last couple of years. But my background is a CSM, so I'm right there with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, now it's time to answer. So again, 3 common mistakes that you see people make when it comes to our customer relationships.
I would say the first one would be scalability. Especially someone with a CSM background, my approach is to tailor my content to the merchant and make it really specific for them. But especially in something like education, it's really important that we make content that can be shared with everyone and that is relevant to everyone. Sometimes we need to meet our customers where they're at instead of where we wish they would be. So things like delivering content at the right time in their journey, making sure that we consider what their experience is before and after we share something with them. The third one I would say is being flexible and being able to understand that everyone's learning style is different and cater to those learning styles. Maybe they use a BPO and their training needs to be delivered in multiple languages, async in different time zones. So that's something to consider. If they're a company that is really old school and perhaps they need things to be printed out and stuck into a manual and bound together and handed to a new employee, we want to be able to be flexible enough with the content that we deliver that they can be used in all of those different scenarios. Because if we're giving something to someone that's useful but cannot be digested, it's useless. You can give someone the most wonderful meal they've ever eaten, but unless you give them the utensils they need to consume it, it just looks pretty.
The next question I have related to this, and you've already started to articulate this, but what do you suggest people do to stop making these kinds of fundamental mistakes?
I think the most important thing is to utilize the first experience. We're never going to be able to get that again. Most education people are coming in from a different arm of the business or perhaps from a CSM background like a lot of us have. And we will never be able to experience the product for the first time ever again. That moment has gone. But we can utilize 2 different channels to do that. One is other products. So you can experience a new platform for the first time, go through someone else's onboarding journey, see what their in-app experience is like. How is someone else delivering education content? So be a new user elsewhere. And then the second one is new hires. Slightly unconventional, but new hires are an amazing opportunity. And please don't lose this because like a first impression, you only get one. When a new hire comes into the business, have them go through your product journey and go through education content, not as an educator, but as a new user. Have them write down all their feedback, whether it's in a Loom or notes in a doc or voice recordings. I don't care how it gets to me, but I want to know from someone who is both product focused, but not product experienced, what their experience of the journey is like, because that's a golden opportunity. So training elsewhere and new hires.
That's exceptional. I particularly like that you'll never get the first chance again. But you're right in capturing the new hires. One of the things we do often is disconnect our internal onboarding experience with our customer onboarding experience, where it's a perfect place to do so. We're in a world that's very different. And what I'd like to ask is, what are the skills that you really need to have to thrive in customer success and customer education here in 2024?
I think empathy is the first one. When it comes down to it, I think that's about being able to understand the merchant's perspective. And where we exist in the business, we don't exist to drive a sales funnel, and we're not here to get marketing content out. We're here to advocate for the customer. And how can we do that unless we fully understand what their challenges are and what their goals are? So empathy would be my top one.
How would you show that your empathy with a customer is translating to meeting their own goals? As in, how are you connecting with them to get their outcomes, and how does that reflect back to our business?
But when we're doing something like setting up an academy or launching a new initiative, we have metrics that we need to hit. And most often, those are not the metrics that the merchant cares about. New users engaged, percentage of accounts engaged, product adoption increased, all those things, the merchant doesn't care about them. That's not their goal. So we need to be able to empathize with them on what their goals are and also understand what their challenges are as a business. If their business is internal L&D and they can't get their team to engage because content is dry and boring, then we need to be thinking, okay, how am I going to get my user metric up? One of their challenges to get users in is content is not dynamic and not engaging. So then I need to make a business case internally to put more time into making content more dynamic and engaging. Because if we go to leadership and say, hey, I need to update everything because all of our screenshots are really awful, it's like, well, that's a design choice. It doesn't really change anything, does it? It's like, no, I want to change these things because the merchant needs them. So again, we need to empathize with our merchants to be able to properly advocate for them within the business that we're in.
All right, Amy, this has been wonderful. I think if anything, and everybody would agree, that actually understanding what your customer wants and and the frustrations they get and what they need to get there, that's the most important part of our journey. So thank you so much for joining us on our show here. We really appreciate you and all the expertise you're putting out to the world. So cheers. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I'll see you soon.